I guess a tip for mums in particular is not necessarily believing your children when they say they know exactly where it all is the night before.
Yeah, we've actually learned that there's two very important words to say right then, and that is show me. It's the Happy Families podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. My name's Dr. Justin Coulson, here with my wife and co-host, Mrs. Happy Families, who's a little bit tired today.
Just a little.
and I'm the one that's copping the brunt of it because, I just tried to press the record button and I forgot to plug the microphones in. I couldn't work it out, and Kylie's looked at me and goes, "It's not plugged in." Oh gosh, this is going to be an interesting podcast. We're the parents of 6 kids. I've written 6 books about how to have happy families, and usually that revolves around my wife having enough sleep, I reckon. Hey, we've been getting some feedback via podcasts. That's podcasts with an S. Podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au, and I'm on the outer, and I think what I've just said then might have even pushed me further to the outer. Do you want to talk about the feedback, or should I?
Oh, you can talk about the feedback.
People are saying I talk too much. I don't know why, because I've got so much to say, but people are sort of saying, Kylie, how do you live with him? Can you just get him to be quiet? We want to hear from you. You're the mum. You're in the trenches. He might know stuff, but you're doing stuff.
Well, if you want to hear more from me, then by all means join us tonight for book club.
Well, I thought you were going to say something else. I thought you were going to say, if you want to hear more from me, tell Justin to be quiet. But yeah, book clubs tonight. If you're a Happy Families member, 21 Days to a Happier Family, Kylie runs book club. I'm not involved. You hear from no one except Kylie. But today I'm going to try my best to just be a little more, what's the word? Deferential.
Oh, differential?
Deferential. Deferential. If I'm differential, I think that's mathematical or something to do with the car. I'm going to be more deferential today. What are you talking about in book club? Tell me about it.
Well, we had so much fun last Wednesday as we opened up book club. We talked about getting the child-parent relationship right and being where your feet are. Ooh. And as we discussed on Friday, I was really trying hard to be where my feet are. So book club is definitely having an impact on me, but had some great insights from parents as they joined in. And tonight we're actually going to be looking at routines and why they matter. We're going to discuss and talk about holding family meetings and how they can have a positive impact in the way our families run. And we're going to hopefully get time to touch on me time versus we time.
So I think that we should cover off a little bit of one of those topics just now. Let's talk about routines. But before we do that, I would really like to know, when you were talking last week in book club about getting the relationship right, did you talk about the bucket analogy, the bucket metaphor that I use in 21 Days to a Happier Family?
We sure did. That was a really integral part of the conversation. And for those people who have been participating in book club, we actually put a challenge up on our Facebook page in relation to that and helping us to kind of really unpack where our time together, spent together, is in comparison to direction and correction, and that need to really develop and strengthen those relationships.
So for those who are not familiar with what's in 21 Days to a Happier Family and the bucket metaphor that we're describing, basically your relationship is a bucket, and our job is to fill our children's buckets with connection. And metaphorically, that's the water that goes into a bucket. Like, you don't want a bucket full of air, you want a bucket full of water. That's what buckets are for carrying water. So the water is represented by connection, and the air, well, that's correction and direction. And so the question pretty much is, this morning, how much time did you spend connecting and correcting versus connecting? And I think as we sort of, we'll talk about the morning routines and stuff in a sec, I think that if we can get good quality connection into our mornings, which is, let's face it, missing from most people's mornings most of the time because there's so much to do and so little time to get it done, we spend all of our mornings correcting and directing, and we wonder why our relationships are lousy in the mornings.
Well, we find our children kind of, get sidetracked along the way, don't they? They start really well, but they get a bit sidetracked, and we're constantly having to redirect them back to what they need to do.
So that's where that metaphor comes from, and I reckon that if we keep that in mind, that's what you talked about in book club last week. Keep that in mind as we talk about what we're going to talk about today in terms of making our mornings magical. That is probably going to be one of the most important things that we can do.
I was thinking that tapping into that, as much as we talked about being where your feet are, is just as important, because when you think about all of the things that you're doing in the morning, you're actually not right where you are. You're thinking about everything that needs to be done and the need to hurry, because there's, you've got to get them out the door and get them to school, and then you've either got to go off to work or come home and, do all of the enormous list of ongoing chores that just never seem to be able to get through. And so being where your feet are is actually going to help slow your thinking down and the way you interact with your children, which will create better connection.
See how I let you just cut me off and keep going?
You did.
I'm deferring. Did you like that? All right, so let's talk about how to make our mornings magic next. It's the Happy Families podcast. I'm Dr. Justin Coulson, here with Mrs. Happy Families, Kylie Coulson, my wife and mum to our 6 kids. And we're talking about how to make mornings magic. And I think it's fair to say that we've had our fair share of pretty average mornings, which is why we're pretty passionate about getting mornings right.
Well, if you were listening to the podcast on Friday, we gave you a bird's eye view of a morning that hasn't gone so well.
The short version is that the morning went like this. I woke up early. Now, we were exhausted because our Year 12 daughter had her formal the night before, which meant that we got home from picking her up extremely late, probably 2 or 3 hours after our bedtime. And so I made Kylie breakfast in bed, chopped up a fruit salad with fresh everything. And I was thinking to myself, this is going to be the morning that I talk about in the podcast where I say, I just got this so right. In fact, I was feeling so confident that I said to the kids, get yourselves organised. We'll ride to school today. And so I don't know what happened, but I gave Kylie breakfast in bed, and Kylie just kind of never came out of the bedroom, never surfaced, which is probably a bit unfair. I expected her to shovel her breakfast in 2 minutes and then come out and help me get the kids going, and it didn't happen.
I needed to have a shower.
Yeah, and I'm just out there thinking, I'm doing it all on my own. I've made a breakfast in bed, for goodness sakes. What's going on?
You kind of lost it at that point, didn't you?
I didn't have a good morning. And while I don't think that I was necessarily cruel or unkind to anyone, I got a bit shouty. I turned into shouty dad. So that was our week last week. We're doing our best to be better. We're trying to be better tomorrow kind of thing. What do you reckon are the integral essentials of making mornings magic?
Well, you talk specifically about 4 different things that we can do in helping to create those magic moments each morning with our kids. So the first one was really recognizing and understanding that our morning actually starts the night before. Do you want to unpack that for us a little bit?
Yeah, so we know that if we can get everything organised the night before, the next day just runs so much more smoothly. So that means when you go to bed, the kitchen's actually tidy and the house is in reasonable shape. But more than that, it's specifically the morning stuff. Like, are the kids? Do you know where the kids' shoes are?
Or a school bag,
or their
school hat,
or their lunchbox,
or their reading,
their library books. So it's making sure that the bag is pretty well packed. The uniform is laid out. The shoes and the socks and the sports uniform, everything that they need is ready to go. If you remember to do that the night before, it just means that you don't have that pressure of, what do you mean you can't find your shoes? You were wearing them yesterday in the car on the way home. You don't have to deal with that stuff.
And I guess a tip for mums in particular, or dads, but for me, is not necessarily believing your children when they say they know exactly where it all is the night before.
Yeah, we've actually learned that there's 2 very important words to say right then, and that is show me. I want to see them.
So definitely has had such a significant impact on making our mornings move forward in positive ways when we have done that preparation the night before.
Yeah. Now, if you want to go over the top, we've done this. We haven't done it for a while, but we both know that it works supremely well. We actually put together a breakfast menu and a lunch list. And before the kids go to bed, we get the kids to circle on the laminated breakfast menu what they want for breakfast the next day, and they choose what they want for lunch the next day. Because, sometimes they walk out into the kitchen and they're bleary-eyed and they're tired and they can't decide what they want. They just open the fridge and stare at it for 4 minutes.
Well, the TV it's not a TV, but they think it is.
The fridge is so entertaining. It's just, what's in the fridge? And so what we found is that when the kids are making decisions the night before for what they'll have for breakfast and lunch, they just come out into the kitchen and get on with it. And we've spent time helping them to learn how to make this stuff, how to prepare their own lunches, how to prepare their own breakfasts. And they can do most of it pretty well without our assistance. But the great thing is now that the decisions are made, even if they do need help, it's so easy for us to step in. So that's kind of going over the top for some parents, but for us, we found that it's tremendously helpful.
Definitely, and I think in the early stages, there was a lot of involvement needed from me. But as our children have, I guess, gone through that process, and like you said, we've trained and taught them how to do it, they are very much independent in relation to that. So I guess one of the other things that we've talked about in those 4 different steps is waking our children up just a few minutes earlier than they need to be awake, and doing it in such a way that it's not such an abrupt, rude, intrusion to this beautiful night's sleep that they've had.
Yeah, so most of the time when we wake the kids up in the morning, it sounds like this. Would you just wake up? This is the 5th time I've told you. You're 10 minutes late already. It's going to be horrible. And nobody likes those kinds of wake-ups.
Yeah, I don't think I ever had that. It was just they turn the light on.
Oh, right, yeah.
Or open the blinds. Turn the light on.
The light comes.
It's time to get up.
Yeah. That sort of stuff just doesn't work well. And so if you want to have a magic morning with connection rather than correction and direction, I reckon go and sit on their bed 10 minutes early, give them a squeeze, give them a hug, let them know that you love them and say, are you all set for the day? What can I do to help? We've
done this so well that our 6-year-old actually comes and does it to me now.
10 minutes early.
Yes, 10. I wish. And so then your last one, Justin, you talk about the need to not tell our children what to do, but ask them what to do. How does that actually work?
So much of our mornings are, would you hurry up? Why haven't you done this? Go and get this for me. Go and pack that away. Like we're constantly telling our kids what to do. We're correcting and directing. But when we connect, a great way to engage with the kids when they're not moving is to connect by asking questions. You might say, hey, what's next on your list? Or is there anything you need help with? I noticed that you're standing there looking a little bit lost. And when you reach out and offer to help, or when you say, what's next on your list, those kinds of responses are much less likely to be perceived as correcting and directing, and much more likely to be felt like, we're connecting with them, we're seeing them, we're valuing them, we're offering to help them. And that's good for building the relationship, and it's good for making mornings magic, and it's good for getting you out the door on time.
And. There was lots of ands there. So I'm going to add my own one little tip, and I think that it has a huge impact in my morning, is just using those gentle reminders. So when the kids have actually finished or perceived to have finished their, morning routine, and they're ready to go to school, and they're already just to kind of, chill out and wait for the school bus to come along, that being me. Sometimes I'll recognise and see that they haven't actually done a few of the things that they needed to do, chore-wise, or, helping out around the house. And so just a gentle reminder, hey, Annie, the laundry is enough for her to kind of kick into gear and go, oh, yeah, I've got 5 minutes, I can go and do, put a load on.
I love listening to you. I reckon we should do this podcast more often.
Well, I really enjoy speaking with you.
Well, we hope that you've enjoyed the podcast. Thank you so much for being with us. If you do enjoy the podcast, can you please visit Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review? It's the reviews and the ratings that you leave that help people find out about the podcast and find out why there's so much to love, like Sarah did, who jumped on and left us a 5-star review. We appreciate that so much, Sarah, and some kind comments as well, all about you, Mrs. Happy Families.
Wow, my first review. This is a bit exciting. It says, I'm loving this podcast. I'm always a better parent after I listen to an episode. Kylie is a great addition. The husband-wife banter is hilarious and very relatable. We are really enjoying spending time together in this way and being able to kind of banter. We're really enjoying that. It's not very often that we get the opportunity to just enjoy one another's company and have these light-hearted conversations about really important things. So thanks, Sarah.
And Sarah, Kylie's eyes lit up. She didn't know that was there. I just threw it in front of her just in time for her to read it out. So really appreciate that, and thanks for making Mrs. Happy Families even happier. She's going to have a spring in her step all day because of that. We love your reviews. Please keep sending them through. It's how people find the podcast and make their families happier. If you'd like more information about how you can make your family flourish, how you can make your mornings magic, how you can just love your kids more, I guess, especially if you'd like ongoing monthly support through our memberships, check it all out at happyfamilies.com.au. Visit the memberships page and you'll find all the info there. You can get more information as well on our Instagram page or at Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families on Facebook.